Hey guys, this is Neek and Rez, and this is She Moved Alchemy. Today we are going to be talking about fake intimacy.
Yeah, so before we even dive into that, let's talk about what intimacy is. First, intimacy, it is the feeling of being emotionally connected and supported. When you are intimate with a person, you feel like you can be vulnerable. You feel like you can trust that person. There is no real intimacy without real trust and real vulnerability. Now, the problem with this is a lot of people, we want that closeness, but we really don't want to do the vulnerability part. And we're still human. We try to satisfy that need for intimacy, but because we won't take that step to vulnerability or trustworthiness, or we won't wait for the right person to be vulnerable with, we start doing unhealthy things to kind of give us that feeling of like intimacy, knowing it's the knockoff and not really the real thing. So one of the most prevalent ways we see people doing this is using sex as a means to gain intimacy. Now, when we're talking about this, what we're saying is like using sex as a way to get attention from partners, to get reassurance from partners, to even if it's just...
I said that's definitely like fake intimacy.
Yeah. I mean, even to just like temporarily prevent the feeling of abandonment. Using your body as collateral for a brief high, essentially.
Like you said it right here, like using it for collateral, or I don't feel it would be fulfilling. And I think you just really explained the reasons that I would feel that way.
Yeah, I feel like in our culture, in this generation, and even somewhat in the younger generation, even though I will say I actually read a article the other day that said the generation under us, you know, the people that's like 22, 24, if you was born in the 2000s, definitely y'all. But that generation is actually having less sex than previous generations. And it feels like that seems somewhat inaccurate because they're probably like one of the most liberal generations that we have, but the reports are saying like they're not actually out here having sex though. Like they're liberal in their thoughts, but they're actually like not out here wilding like we think they are. They're actually a lot more closed off and like isolated than we believe. It's like, yeah, they were talking about how like, yeah, you know, they're very extroverted online. They are awkward in person. That's the feel I got from the article where I was just like, okay, that's interesting. But
all this sneaky links and stuff, is that our generation?
That's our generation. Our generation.
I'm like, so who's doing that then?
Us. That would be us. That would be our... That would be...
Want to have sex, whatever. Like, I'm hearing that a lot. So that's our generation that's doing it?
Yes. That is, we are the ones ruining the
I don't feel like we should be doing this right now, but...
that would be our dating pool options. They are the ones creating that problem. Okay. But no, they talk about wilding, but we actually out here doing the wilding, apparently. But one of the things, though, it makes me think of like in our dating pool, this is something that's like common where people are having multiple sexual partners and, you know, going from person to person. And it's very common that like you meet people and you're like, oh, when's your last relationship? And for real, they can't tell you because most of them have been situationships. They have not actually been actually like, I want you, I'm going to commit to you. Let's commit to each other, be together, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of like muddiness of like, I mean, definitely was sleeping with this guy for a year and we acted like we were in a relationship except for he worked, like little stuff like that. And I think because like we somehow got like lost in this bubble of like, okay, well, I want to date and I'm a grown woman, so I want to be sexually active. And so it's like, you're dating, you're doing this, and I'm for it, girl. Like, if that's what you want to do it. But also, there kind of creates this issue of like, okay, but do I really know what real intimacy is now? Because is what I'm getting actually intimacy? If I'm meeting people and I'm like, oh my gosh, I like you, I'm having sex with you, I'm doing all these things with you, but I don't feel like I can trust you, I don't feel safe being vulnerable with you, then are we actually building intimacy? And I just want to be clear, it's not this anti-sex thing because I'm like pro-sex. I very, very much am. But it's a matter of like, okay, at what level are we bringing in our consciousness to how we're operating? What am I operating out of? Because when we're talking about this as a mean for like scamming for intimacy, it is like, at some point, for some people, there's a recognition of, if I want to be held in the way I want to be held, if I want this to continue, I have to trade you my body for this.
Yeah.
And that's very different. That's very different than I am having sex because I'm a grown and I want to have sex. And like, that's just what I want from this. And I don't think anything's wrong with that. But there is another thing where if that whole process is operating under the guise of like in the back of your consciousness, what it's operating out of is really, I need attention. I need reassurance. I feel alone and I need someone to make me feel wanted.
Yeah.
Those are, you know, that's a line. There's a line that can be crossed. And we got to wonder, like, when am I crossing that line? What am I really doing this for? I will say, though, and my fellas, don't get mad at me. I know y'all hate when I talk and I say men. We're like, what's she about to say now? But, like, this reminds me, though, like, whenever I meet men who go years without relationships, like without commitment, I always kind of in the back of my mind, like, what you running from? Like, I am not trying to be the first woman to make you feel like that. Just sounds dreadful. I would like someone else to come in and do the work, decide she's done, and then I'll step in and be like, all right, okay, cool. You got your ABCs, you got the basics, cool. Let's take it from there. But I do. And the reason why I point to single this out to men instead of women is because from what I found in the people in my life, though, I know plenty of women who want love and intimacy and vulnerability, and they are doing backflips and all type of gymnastics to make this happen. And they're just not meeting men that want to commit and make this happen. But on the other hand of that, a lot of the males I know in my life are like the opposite. Like when they talk about commitment, they act like somebody tricked them. You know, like when they're talking about dating and stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see you, bro. What's the goal? Get bitches. Like that's like that. And I'm talking about some of these men are educated, really good men who are like good people. You know, they're not like slide balls.
Like, we shouldn't be on that level anymore.
Yeah, like, bro, you're 36. Why are you still on that? But like,
we're still in high school. Whatever.
Yeah, but like, no, I think I've talked about this before, but like, this is an example that sticks out of my head. I know my homeboy actually listens to podcasts sometimes, so I know every time he comes across an episode and I tell this story, he's like, bro, please stop using me as an example. Please stop using my pain as an example. But like, I have a friend who like, no, literally had a really, really good woman, like was crazy about her. We were like, yo, this is vibing good. This is a good match. And like, just would not commit to her though. And so she was like, okay, cool, deuces. And like, he can't reach her now. He cannot reach that woman now. And he's still sad over that. Like, he's still like, oh, I fucked up. And it's like, it's been like 2 years now. And she's still heavily on his mind, still heavily on this, still heavily like, yo, that was the love of my life. And I'm like, bro, then why didn't you commit? Like, why? You were too busy trying to create all these to fulfill your ego. Because a lot of times, especially with
was he scared, or what was it? Or he was just trying to talk to other people, or
yeah, it was definitely like, oh, you know, let's be friends. You know, let's go with the flow. I'm not, you know, I want to be friends longer. You know that bullshit. You know that bullshit. We don't know. You know, once we get. I feel like the female friends, we got a different side of the story than the male friends got. But my spidey senses tell me it was some bullshit on some like, he wanted to play the field a little bit more. And before he settled down or whatever. But she was done playing the field. So while he was playing the field, she was like, cool. I'm done though. Mm-hmm. And she signed her up for new team, new player.
Yeah. And he made that commitment. It's just like, some guys just don't even freaking know why they don't want to commit. Because I don't think they really know why. I don't know.
I mean, but it goes back to what we talk about all the time. That's why you need to sit with your feelings and feel your feelings.
No offense, guys. I don't think they do.
They don't.
I know sometimes women run too, but I feel like we sit with our feelings way more often.
Oh, I don't think we are either, though. I feel like I'm constantly talking also to women who don't. Like, again, up until 2 years ago, like, I went to school to teach people how to sit with their feelings, and I wasn't sitting with mine up until 2 years ago. Because it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, I stay busy, so I won't have to majority of the time.
Right. But, so we not really I think sometimes we have a more of an awareness of certain things, but it's a whole bunch of male and females just not sitting with their feelings. And like you said, stay busy. Like, again, there are some people that use sex as a way to block those feelings of like, yo, man, I really got abandonment issues. I really am struggling to commit, and I have a fear of being vulnerable with somebody, but I really want to. And again, it's not like you're conscious. It's the unconscious of like, but there is a level of vulnerability during sex. It is a level of, cool, and let me create these false moments of vulnerability with multiple different people. And multiple different highs, because then not only does that give me a false high and makes me forget that I do have that fear of someone abandoning me, because then after I get done having sex, I get to leave and abandon you and go on to the next person. That's a whole other thing. We really need to have an abandonment issue episode, because that's a whole other thing, especially, people with abandonment issues, getting people in their life, getting them close to the point of love, or maybe even their version of love or whatever, and then abandoning them. And it's a whole thing about trying to do that power play, trying to reverse what happened to you in your childhood, but you're acting it out with other people now that you're an adult. Teach on that for hours. But anyways, that's a 3-part series. But, doing that with sex, but then now, not only that, not only am I running away from the abandonment issues, now I'm also getting the reassurance that somebody wants me. Look at this person yelling my name. I done text this person at 2:43 p.m. Their car is in the shop and they still got here. Like, there is a level of also ego being satisfied for that, getting that attention. You're getting that reassurance. You're preventing abandonment, even if it's only for a couple minutes. And again, the issue with this, though, is that you run the risk of sex no longer even meaning anything to you because you're detached from it. And of course, again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying this is for everybody. I think that there are ways to have sex healthily and not necessarily always have to be this huge bonding thing. That's not what I'm preaching at all. But I'm saying is, I'm talking about those who are, again, using sex as a coping mechanism and not using it as something for my pleasure. Like, there's other sides to that where there are people who are literally using this as if it's their medicine for sadness, from loneliness. All right, Nick, so what is another way people scam for intimacy?
Another way is holding on to a relationship that aren't really relationships. Like, sis, he's single, you single. Let's operate that way. So in this, you're just like hoping that time would change, or their mind would change over time, or just wonder why they don't want to be with you, and then you just settle, and then you build resentment for that person and wonder why he hasn't changed. But it's like you haven't stood your ground on what you need out of that relationship, or just allowing him to. I think it's okay to be friends first, but not like this with the attention that let's be friends first to never be together, and then you build resentment towards that person.
My whole things with the friends first thing is like, if we're genuinely friends, I don't have sex with my friends though.
Yes,
that's how I feel about it. Like, if you want to be friends, then cool, we're going to be friends. But if we're dating, then we're dating. I've just seen it be used as a trick. I know very few men who have said that, and then they actually went on and committed, married, and whatever that woman. Like, I feel like I just see it being used as a trick to dangle in front of somebody. Like, nah, because we gonna be friends. And it's like a get out of jail free card for when they fuck up. Now, remember, we was friends.
We just friends.
Yeah.
I get it that way, but I also get it as I want to build some type of, not friendship, like, I don't know, or like use like.
But it's not about friend zoning though, because they're not friend zoning you. They still want access to your body and your emotions.
Yeah.
To me, no, either we dating or we're friends. When I date, I get to know that person. I get to know their personality, if I like them. All the things that they keep saying why they want to be quote unquote friends, you can do that while you're dating.
Dating. I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
I didn't never think about it that way. But you don't have sex with your friends, or you don't do half the stuff you do when you're doing something. Yeah. I get it. And then you build resentment because they're treating you just as a friend, just like you had to let them go. So just holding on to relationships that you don't see a change in, or you don't see a moving in the right direction, just to cure that intimacy part, and that person is there consistently, but it's not really there how you want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Then you build the resentment in yourself and that person, and it basically just tarnishes the whole thing.
Yeah.
You have anything you want to say about it?
Yeah, no, just kind of what you said. Like, the problem with this, I think, is not so much that you have to automatically be in a relationship or whatever. It's just that when you know you're ready and a person has made it clear they're not, when you're holding on, hoping to change that person's mind, like, to me, that is kind of like a level of fake intimacy, because you are literally trying to convince this person you're worthy. And I don't think that that's how intimacy should go. I can't feel safe in that. I can't feel safe in trying to prove myself to somebody. I don't feel safe being vulnerable in trying to prove myself to somebody, you know? I mean, all of us has either been in that situation, or we know somebody that's been in that situation. I have been in that situation when I was younger before myself, where it's a situationship, and like in your head, when you finally walk away, you're hurt and you're all these things. And the other person is just like, bro, we weren't even together. And it's like a moment of like, how could you, but we spent this much time dating. How can you treat it like whatever? Why? Because it was never intimate for them. It was never real intimacy. That's why they can throw it away. That's why they can just walk away and treat it like whatever. That's why they cannot really care about your feelings after the fact and all this stuff, because they never wanted to commit. They never did commit. They were there for your body. They might have been there for your emotions and all of those things, but they were never really vulnerable with you. They were never really a safe place for you. And that's why it's so easy for them to walk away. For you, it's like, well, how could you blah, blah, blah? We had all these moments. And it's like, you might have had those moments, but as a unit together, did y'all really?
You don't really have.
And I'm not even talking about marriage, but simply you, my girl, you, my dude.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I've been on both sides of it, but I have also dated people and been in situationships where I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not really, give me time. Let me think about it, whatever. And when I look back on those, like, those weren't intimate relationships to me. Those weren't intimate moments to me, because the people that it felt really tender and intimate, those were people who I was like, no, I want to be with you. Those are people who got to see me soft. Those are the people who got to see me try.
Mm-hmm.
So after so long, and you're like, okay, I'm still not getting that, then we got to re-examine, like, okay, can I actually really be vulnerable with this person? Do I actually feel safe? Mm-hmm.
And if you can't, it's just the wasting of the time.
Mm-hmm. And it's this whole, is this real? Yeah. Is this real or not?
Yeah.
Now, another one that we see happen, and this one is a little bit harder to explain, but it's when people kind of like study their partner to the fact that they are almost like intuitive to their partner's needs, while abandoning their own needs and not requiring that partner to care for their needs whatsoever. And this is something that sometimes people do as a means of like trying to control the situation as much as possible. This is something that sometimes people do when they are trying to convince a person that they're lovable. And again, I want to be clear. This isn't like, okay, literally I am meeting your needs out of like, I know this is what happens, so let me just go ahead and get this type of thing. This is, I am doing this as a way to prove to you how much of a wife I am, how much of a husband material I am. I'm talking about the people who are doing this to try to control the relationship. Not because they're just like, oh, I know you like this, so I got it, and this is a part of my need. No, that's a thing too. But there are certain people who do this, and it's out of a need of control. It's out of a need of trying to force something. Mm-hmm. This is not out of like, oh, this is naturally who I am. This is who I am as a means to protect myself. Because if I study you and know you to a certain extent, I can lessen my shock when you do certain things. And the more I know, the more I feel in control, the more I feel comfortable being around you. But this is not intimacy. This is not vulnerability. This is control. And sometimes we mix up control with love.
Yeah.
And we have to be very, very careful of that. This is something I had to learn about myself, that for a long time, I often confused control with love. And I think it's because from a very early age, love was shown to me as control. And so that's what I thought love was. Love was like, okay, well, if I love you, I will want to control you. I know what's best. So let me do what's best. Let me, and one of the things that's kind of talked about in psychology when it comes to love and control is that this whole kind of like studying your partner's needs almost becomes like you're intuitive to their needs to that extent as a means to control. This is something that a lot of people who have issues with abandonment and so forth in their childhood do when they get older and they get into relationships. And this is because a lot of times for these people, whether it was physical abandonment or emotional abandonment, they felt the need as a child to be intuitive to their environment for like emotional survival. These are the people who had parents that might have overshared with them or were very emotional parents. And so they always had to meet the need of their parents as a child. These are the people who were treated like they were a lot older than they were when they were younger. And so they had to learn very early to assume the responsibility and maybe of other siblings, maybe of, I got to babysit, I got to make sure everybody's breakfast is ready, whatever type of thing. These are also the people who might have parents that jumped in and out their life. They'll come in and pretend they're going to be good, then they will disappear. Then they'll come in and pretend to be good, and they're going to be a good dad, and they're going to actually come to pick them up for weekends, and then they don't hear from them for 2 years. For these individuals, it's not uncommon for them in their childhood. They had to learn very quickly how to read other people's moods and the environment they were in so that they could soften the blow to whatever was going to be happening in their childhood. This might be the individuals who had to do that sort of thing where they had to know their environment. They had to almost intuitively know their environments. This might also be individuals who had parents that were sick a lot during their childhood. And so they had to kind of pick up the slack a little bit more. They kind of had to read the room on, okay, is mom doing too much right now? I need to step up my game. These are people who, again, they had to, and there's lots of other reasons why this may come to be, but they had to, for some reason, pick up these skills of learning how to read people, learning how to read the room before things are said, before things are necessarily done. And this was something that was a protective factor for them in childhood. But the way that it can translate in adulthood is control, because once they get out of their environment, and so an easier way of doing that is to control their relationships, control the people they're around. And a lot of times they don't see it as control. A lot of times if you tell them they're a controlling person, they're like, what? This is me loving you. Because again, we have control sometimes mixed with love. And again, I want to be very clear. This is not because your parents were bad type of thing. For some of us, yes, we did have parents that were bad. But some of us, we had really good parents, but there were situational things, environmental things happening that they could not control. For example, if you had a parent that was sick a lot during your childhood, they didn't have control over that. And so they probably did not know that as a child, this is what you were doing. Same thing with me. I've talked about this. I had a brother who died at a very young age. That was something that was out of my parents' control. Their reaction was to be stricter, to love through means of control as a way of keeping me safe. And I get that. I understand that they lost a child. They wanted to do everything they could to protect the other children that they had, not realizing what those type of things had impacted me. So when we say this, I want to say, and be sure we understand that I'm not saying like, oh, and it means because you had bad parents. No, because a lot of times I feel like an issue that we do need to confront, and we'll probably have an episode on this eventually, is that sometimes people have issues confronting some of the stuff from their past and their childhood, because when you bring up certain topics, they feel the need to automatically reject it, because it's like a sense of, I am betraying my family if I admit that this is what happened, if I admit that there are some things from my childhood that harmed me, because that means I'm saying my mom wasn't perfect. That's me saying dad wasn't great. And so they just reject the ideas. And me personally, I feel like that can be dangerous, because you can't really get to true full healing if you don't allow yourself to fully dive in there in your feelings and your emotions and reprocessing what happened without judgment. You can look at these things and not have a judgment on mom and not have a judgment on dad, and just literally look at it from what it is without rejecting that idea. That is something I feel like I come across a lot in the field. People just straight out rejecting certain ideas because there's like this cognitive dissonance that jumps in, that refuses anything that threatens the idea that, no, I grew up and had a happy childhood. I had a happy family. My family was great. It was perfect. And so they just straight up reject it. It's about just being able to realistically look at the things that have happened to you and how that has currently impacted you. But going back to what I was saying about control and love, it was something they had to do when they were younger to protect themselves. And unfortunately, sometimes we carry that over into our adult relationships and then wonder why like we're having trouble having successful relationships, because that's not a healthy form of love.
At all.
When you love somebody, you have to allow freedom in that love. And you have to trust that in their freedom, they will respect y'all love together and not try to control it. That person has to choose that freely from themselves. And it doesn't mean they're always going to do the right thing. They might not. And then you can decide what you want to do when they don't. But a person choosing you who you don't really give the choice to choose other things. A person choosing to do right by you when you set up all these traps and so forth to make them, that's not really them choosing.
At all. You want it to be free will and natural. But
yeah.
You inserting yourself in any way, like true intimacy and true love or whatever it is, doesn't look that way.
Yeah. True intimacy, again, comes out of honesty, vulnerability, and trust. And again, you can't have those things if you are gripping on control. Control and trust don't work together in relationships like that. Even with children, this is something me and Ashley, who we had in the last episode, her blog is Parents Are People. Definitely go check her out, guys. But we talked about that, where it's like, even with our kids, like sometimes parents, we want to hold on to the reins of them so tight. And sometimes we're doing that out of protection, out of thinking like the world is cruel and I want to block you from as much as possible. And I get that. I'm a mom and I do that too. Trust me. I got a whole bunch of Hades Moon type stuff I'm working through. Like I want to hold on to those reins when it comes to my daughter. But I have to constantly remind myself what that was like for me, to have my parents hold on to reins, because they wanted to keep me safe. I had a sibling that died. And I mean, it was already a thing before that, but especially after that, I wasn't given a lot of freedom. I wasn't given a lot of freedom to be myself, but I also wasn't given a lot of physical freedom just to do things. I know that was out of fear. That was my parents' reaction, out of fear of they already lost one child. Let's bubble wrap this one. Let's bubble wrap this one and put her in this box. And so the outside world cannot touch her. And that created other additional issues. And so even now with myself, when I feel myself want to do that with my daughter, I try to remind myself like, okay, she needs the freedom to at least be her. We can set up safety parameters with her being her, but I can't control her spirit. I got to step up, embrace her extremely extroverted self with my introverted self.
My child is starting to become extroverted and extreme energizer bunny 24/7, and I'm like, can we just breathe? Can we just not touch my mirror for 5 seconds? And I'm starting to realize, like, touch was like the last thing on my love languages. Like, I don't want to be touched, but I have to, like, but it's like the first thing on hers. It's like it's the only thing on hers. So it's like I have to hug her often. But I just feel like a bad mom because I don't really like to be touched.
Yeah.
And it's just like reassurance. Like, I have to do this for her. Though I have to do this for her. Like, but it becomes overwhelming. But it goes back to trying to love her how she wants to be loved instead of loving her how I want her to be loved, or just not trying to have her go through some of the same things that I went through. But it's a hard process.
Yeah. It's hard. It's very hard. Going back to what we were saying, when you are finding yourself studying your partner, but as a way to try to control the outcome of this situation, that's one of those scamming for intimacy moves. That's not real intimacy. That's not a real, I call it my Scorpio vibes, because I feel like that's how Scorpios give love. They're like, let me study you. I want to know every single thing there is to know about you, which I get. I got a Scorpio moon. I digs that. But apparently, that's actually, we have control issues that we need to work through. So,
yeah, and then you're like studying that person and like doing and making sure you complete all of their needs. But then you might get angry if they don't do the same. You just want the same thing back. You also have to realize everybody's not going to operate the same way you operate. And if you're just studying them to get to know them so they can like you, that's just master manipulation for intimacy.
You know? Yeah. And I'm glad that you used that word manipulation, because I feel like we don't like to say that out loud. Like, oh, dang, that was a very manipulative thing I just did. But it is. It is. And again, for a lot of people, it's not that you're trying to be manipulative, but that's what you're being.
One thing, that's how you think you should get it, but it's not natural. I just like natural.
Yeah. I mean, and it can also lead to a feeling of burnout. This is something I know I definitely experienced, where I have dated people that I like, and all of a sudden I just get super tired of them. And I had to recognize, for me, it was like, yeah, because it's tiring trying to control a situation and another person for long periods of time. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. And you wondering, like, why did I just all of a sudden really, really just stop liking them or dislike them or fell out of love or even resent them? And it's like, yeah, it's probably because it's really you got tired of you. You trying to control the situation. You trying to control a narrative. You trying to control it. And then I think also another important part of that is when you're trying to control a person, a relationship, a narrative, instead of like allowing these to just be natural and process how they are, and knowing that, yes, that might mean pain might be involved, and that might be a part of this, and you have to be okay with that. Because that's a part of trusting and being vulnerable to a person, is understanding that they can violate that trust, unfortunately. And when they do, and if they do, then you just process that pain and then move on however you feel the need to move on. I think sometimes we forget about that part because we only like to talk about love and the exciting parts and the happy parts and the happily ever after. And the reality is sometimes it is happy and then it's not. And there's hurt and you have to walk away, and that's painful, and that's okay. That's also part of the human experience. Yeah. But going back to that whole like resentment part, it's like, because, I think sometimes, I know this has happened with me. Like, one of the things I used to say, I still say about myself, is that when I really, really, one of the ways you can tell I really care about a person is that I start to anticipate their needs. It's a big part of me that when I care about a person, I want to fill in those gaps for you. And I say all the time, like, oh, that's part of my personality. But I'm very aware of the fact, like, yeah, it's part of my personality for a very particular reason. Like, because I had to learn to do that very early. Like, yeah, it's a part of my personality, but I feel like it's a learned part. that can be unlearned. And not saying that isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes that's really helpful, especially when you're doing it out of love and it's coming from a loving place with a person that's loving, and you have those things like trust and intimacy and all those things. But I found that I would get like start to resent people and then just fall out of love quickly. And I recognized, because it was like at the end of it, when I really sat back and looked at those situations where that happened, it was like, because I was never really in love with them, I was in love with an idea, because I was trying to keep that idea afloat. And then besides the resentment and the anger or the burnout from trying to control a situation, I also started realizing, as I could not control it, that this was not what I thought it was, and this is who I thought it was. And it wasn't their fault, it was my fault, because I didn't allow them to be who I thought they were.
Yeah. And then it's just like, when you get to that point, it's just like, you can't really even go back to liking them.
Yeah, you can't.
Be like, I'm there. It's like, oh, I'm burnt out. And it really could not be their fault. It's more your fault. But it's just like, I'm burnt out. It don't matter whose fault it is.
Yeah. Either way, I'm done.
We're done.
Either way, I'm done. Now, one of the last ones we're going to talk about is letting issues run unchecked. This might be the, oh my gosh, we never fight people. And there are couples that never fight. That's a real thing. I have actual friendships where I have never gotten in a fight with these people, and they have been close friends of mine for years. So I know that's a thing, but this is the people who it's like, oh gosh, yeah, like we never fight. And it's not because there's healthy communication. It's not because they're always on one accord. It's because they let things slide. Not just little things, but everything. They refuse to address conflict. And what happens with this is that whole kind of like, again, self-betrayal, abandoning your own needs out of fear that if I say this will cause a disruption in our intimacy. This will cause a disruption, and I don't want that, so I'd rather abandon my own needs to make this go as smooth sailing as possible. But again, the problem with that is that, one, if you have to abandon your own needs to keep the peace, that's probably somewhere you don't need to be.
Yeah.
Whether it's because of that person or because of you. Because again, some of us, we abandon our needs because it's something we learned and something we do. It has nothing to do with other people. They didn't ask us to do it. They never do anything to make us feel like we have to. It's just something we already bring to the table. But you can't have real intimacy with that, because again, foundation of intimacy is that vulnerability and that trust. And if I can't tell you my needs or how I feel or how I disagree, then I'm not able to be vulnerable with you. Mm-hmm. And that kicks that out the window. Mm-hmm. So quickly, let's break down, what is faux intimacy?
So faux intimacy is a false intimacy, basically, or fake intimacy. It's a feeling of feeling high, but not really having much substance, or seeking that intimacy, but it's really nothing there.
Yeah. See, this reminds me of like online dating. Mm-hmm. Not saying that all online dating is horrible, but like there is like a false high that you get off of going on an app and seeing how many people like you, how many people want to choose you, how many people want to take you out. It's like this fake feeling of this fake high of like wanting, oh, look at all the options I got. Oh, look at how, many people want to take me out. It's like a little ego boost. And I think what we're seeing is a lot of people being over dating sites, and it kind of leads into this kind of like crash and burn type of ending to it. And I think it's because it's like you're creating all this false intimacy when you want the real thing. And it's like recognizing like, oh gosh, this is horrible. Like, you can be, oh, okay, well, I'm texting 6 different guys and I've been on 5 different dates, and I get butterflies for at least 2 of them, and after a while you're like, okay, but this is exhausting. And it's like, why is that? It's like, because none of this is real. Yeah. Yes, okay, you opened the app and you got 1,100 guys that swipe right, okay, but like, I don't have 1,100 options to actually date. And so it's like, okay, out of those 1,100, let's say you yourself was like, okay, I'm going to swipe right on 20 of them. But then out of the 20, only like 8 of them actually respond, have a decent conversation. Don't just say, hey, what you doing every 5 minutes? Okay, so now you do that and you exchange numbers. But out of those 8, maybe only 6 of them, like, do you end up texting? And you're like texting them, but only 5 of them end up actually trying to take you on a date. And out of those 5 that you go on a date with, it's like, okay, now only 2 of them do I kind of like, but like they're also doing this with 2 other women. So now I'm in this circle with 8 other women, all trying to find love. And it's exhausting because it's hard to build intimacy that way. I think me and you've talked about this before, about how like in our dating experience in the past, when we were like actively dating and like, okay, I'm talking to multiple people, how it was easy to like get to a point where you selected down to one person, like, you're my person, I want to be with you. And we notice stuff and we're like, how come I didn't notice before? Because it's hard to notice when you got all these other people also dividing your attention. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing with like emotion. And it's hard to build this secureness and this bond and so forth when you have all these other people distracting you from that. You're only giving everybody little bits and pieces. I think this is like a big reason why some people are able to like serial date and just like back to back to back to back to back. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, they get turned off from the idea. And it's like, cause whether you know it or not, you probably were looking for intimacy and you went out here, you got laughs, you got dinner, you got smiles, you got a little bit of butterflies and you got sex, all of that. But like you never got to be vulnerable.
Like real vulnerability. Like,
you never actually got to trust any of these people.
And that's so tiring.
Yeah.
I feel like that's why a lot of us women don't really be wanting to date.
Oh yeah. I definitely feel like this is a big part of like where I personally am, where I feel like I'm over fake intimacy with people. And it's like, I want the real thing, but also the idea of going out there and doing all those things to get it just does not sound interesting right now. But I definitely feel like that's where my crash and burn came from, where I was just like, you know what? I don't feel safe being vulnerable with any of you. And now I'm recognizing that that's something that I really want. So now I'm very uninterested in everything you guys are throwing at me.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we get the real thing?
One way that we could try or strive to get the real thing is looking for quality and not quantity. I think that's what you were saying earlier, like how we have so many options like on dating sites. It's just like, do I really need to show this person all of me because I have this other person? And like for me personally, I can't date a lot of people at one time because I feel like I give a lot of myself, even though sometimes those people don't give it back. I like open like an open book, and I'm very open at times. So it's just like, I can't give this to everybody because everybody don't deserve this. It's just like, if you cut that down and just give yourself to that one person, the one deserving person, if you and that person have that agreement and you got it on the right track, it's better than having like a whole bunch of people to mingle and talk to. If that's what if we really want intimacy going through all those people, I don't feel like you can get the true intimacy. That's a lot of pieces of yourself to give.
I agree. And also when you are entertaining, like vulnerability is hard to, or maybe it's not, maybe that's my own personal problem, but I would imagine though, it's not hard to give vulnerability to a whole bunch of people. And if you give your vulnerability to one person and you just have other people around, then it's hard to keep being vulnerable with that one person, not in the true sense, at least. And so I do think this is a good one because I think sometimes our ego tells us quantity. So we can be like, I get dudes, don't trust me, face card, never decline. Like we want to do that. It's an ego thing though. And I feel like a lot of us need to have an ego death. It's very painful. But when you get rid of that, right, and you're no longer doing things out of ego, you're no longer doing things trying to prove stuff to other people, trying to prove stuff to yourself. You're simply just here being, existing, and ready to be open and love. Then you'll recognize that this whole quantity thing, like, me personally, and I don't know what the other people are out here doing, because I think we're all very different. But for me personally, I can't be vulnerable and have large quantities of people and still have that vulnerability.
It's hard. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
For me,
yeah.
it's hard too.
Yeah. So another way to get it is kind of like we talked about earlier, sitting with your feelings and learning who you really are and what you really need. Now, the reason why this is a big one is because a lot of times when people are skimming for intimacy, a lot of times they're not actively aware that that's what they're doing. And they're not actively aware that's what they're doing because they're not actively aware of their emotions. They are just living on autopilot, going from thing to thing, just kind of be like, I don't know. But when you sit with yourself and you get to sit with your feelings and you get to know yourself, then you're able to check yourself. This is something that like I've noticed about myself as I've grown and I've sit more actively with my feelings, and I've been active about wanting to know more about me and my own needs outside of all the things I thought I needed, just who I am at the core. I noticed that I will now check myself when I get out of pocket. I will notice that when I start doing something that's toxic, I don't know, every now and then I bypass the like, going off in my head and do it anyway. But please believe I am not there yet. But even when I do that, I notice that afterwards I'd be like, you know what? Now why you do that? You did that because of this. Like I'm checking myself like, this is why you really did that, girl. That triggers something in you. That's why you acted that way, because you know you did not need to go take it that far. You know you did not need to say that. I just always like dissecting it, and I found myself checking myself because I know myself better now. And I feel like that's one of those things that happens. The more you get to know yourself, the more you get to know your real needs and so forth. And it's like, no, after a while, it'll become natural. You'll naturally be able to call yourself out when you get out of alignment.
Another one is learn to be okay being alone. I guess this was one that I am currently working on. I think everybody should try to do it, because it's just like, I don't think it takes away the feeling of wanting companionship, but like you have peace in being alone, working on yourself, and it's just like, I can't settle for less than I deserve, because it's taking away my peace. Like if you're not adding to my peace, or if you're not willing to be intimate with me or be open with me, it's taken away from my peace. And I think that's what the thing is that a lot of us fall for. Like, oh, I don't want to be alone. That person's here. So this is curing that for the moment. But it's just like that isn't fulfilling in the long run. So if you have the peace in yourself and learning how to be with yourself, learning how to sit there and work through your problems, your own feelings, your own emotions, I feel that you won't go for the fake intimacy as much. You might, but you can probably zap yourself out of it, because like, nah, this taking too much of my energy, and it's not really what I want. So
yeah, everything you just said. I think everybody needs to have a season of aloneness, and again, it doesn't mean you'll necessarily stop. Because I do hate when people tell individuals like, oh, I want to settle down and get married. Love yourself first. I mean, you can love yourself and still want companionship.
And that's the thing too, you guys could, if you both are like intimate for real, you both can grow side by side.
You can definitely grow with a person. Growth does not only happen when one is by themselves. But I definitely think that every person should have a period of time in their adult life where they have like a season of isolation, because I think you get so much out of that. And there are some people who don't. There are some people that marry their college sweetheart at 16 and they've been together through everything, and that works for them and their life plan. But I think for a lot of people, it is very important, because you will learn so much about yourself when you're alone and you don't have the distraction of the world. Like, it's important to have that time where you're alone, learning you, because I think that's where you get a lot of your real learning from. One of the last things we're going to touch on when it comes to trying to get the real thing, trying to get the real intimacy, is learning to value the real thing when you have it. Sometimes we get the real thing and we don't know what to do with it. We try to keep multiple quantities of other people around. We try to control it and end up scaring it away or killing it because now they don't feel safe being vulnerable and so forth with you because they know that you're going to try to control it and they just want to do whatever you say to go with the flow. Either way, learning how to value the real thing when you have it is a good way of keeping the real thing there. Appreciate the fact that your partner feels safe in your presence, to be honest with you, to be honest, to disagree with you in a healthy way. And all the other ways, the ones who give you the freedom to be yourself and still love you through that without trying to control you. So hopefully, guys, this has been a helpful episode. We hope that you guys did enjoy it. Unfortunately, that's all we have for today's episode. As always, make sure you share, like, subscribe, head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. Leave us a review with words. It's very helpful to the show. And other than that, you'll have a new episode from us next Thursday. Bye.
Bye.